Hi everyone, welcome back. It's finally time for my July plan with me video, and today I'm going to show you a new monthly bullet journal setup in my brand new notebook with this beach theme. If you haven't seen my mid-year bullet journal setup video, definitely check it out later. I will leave the link on the description box below. But now, let's begin this July setup right away, starting with the cover page. I want to do a full cover page painting here, so I attached some washi tapes on the sides for that clean, straight edges afterwards. I will be using watercolors for the entire setup. I was recently gifted with this Van Gogh watercolor set by an art brand called Royal Talents. It has 36 half pans and it comes with a number 6 paintbrush, which I'm excited to try out. This theme is very reminiscent of my summer holiday last month where we went to the beach. I also asked in my Instagram story for theme suggestions, and I'm glad a lot of you wanted to see a beach theme or something related to it. So here I'm just painting some beach essentials and accessories laying on the sand. There's going to be a hat, a journal, sunglasses, slippers, bikini, a bottle of sunscreen, and a woven bag. I'm also going to be adding some seashells and starfish in this setup to bring more of that beach vibe. I always start with light layers, then gradually add another layer to darken some areas. Painting with watercolors requires patience, so you will really need to wait for the initial layers to dry before adding more. My main colors here are peach and blue, but you will also see some brown, red, and green to add a few more colors to the setup. And by the way, you can find all the supplies I'm using here as well as my discount codes in the video description as usual. It was really great trying out this brush that came with the watercolor set because it has a nice tip that I can use to paint the details and define those thin lines. Painting these small illustrations seemed easy. I also thought that I'll finish this page quickly, but I ended up working on it for quite some time, building up each of the elements by adding shadows and textures and all the little details.
Memories are chasing me away from my reality, breaking me into pieces. I wake up from my dream. I don't know where we went wrong, and you know the answers all along. Now it's up to me to say to you, it's a waste of time, the things we do. Those summer nights, I'm letting you go. Oh, it feels too much, so I'm letting you go. Oh, I am those summer nights.
Now here I'm also painting a towel underneath. I think it's just a nice way to fill the spaces. Since I chose to paint a background here, I want to make sure that the illustrations on the front won't look flat on it. So I also added shadows using a darker brown color. And if you want to recreate this, you can always leave some elements out, like maybe painting a rolled towel instead if you feel like the overall composition looks busy. I usually do quote pages in my monthly setups, particularly just next to my cover pages, but I just don't have a quote that resonates with me at this time, so I will leave it blank for now, and maybe I will have something later on, then I'll just write it here. I also decided to paint the rest of the background with this peachy color and add these shadows of a couple of branches of leaves that are overlaying on the top right corner. I then wrote Summer Journal on the blue book with my 005 Pigma Micron, and finally is the July title in the font called Liana using my 08 fine liner. It looks weird not having something next to it, but that's it for my cover page. Let's flip over to the next spread. I enjoyed last month's layout for my focus and goal spread, inspired by Anna of Journal Away here on YouTube and Instagram. So I'm doing the same for July, but I will be adding a couple more pages by cutting out a horizontal Dutch door. We will do that later, but first let's do this landscape painting of a beach scenery. I started with these beach huts. I'm using ultramarine deep for the first hut, gray mixture and Naples yellow red on the second, and cerulean blue phthalo on the third. If you only have primary colors on your watercolor palette, you can easily just mix any shade of blue that you would like. And then for the details and shadows, I just added a darker tone on each color. Then there are also other stuff around like a surfing board leaning on a hut, a ball, and a life buoy. I'm also painting a tree peeking on the left side of the frame. I don't think I've painted a tree in this particular form or round form with watercolors before, so I was mindlessly painting small blobs of darker green color on top of lighter ones, aiming to achieve a loose appearance. I painted the sea and the sky in the background. This doesn't have to be precise because it's just a small illustration, so I was just doing horizontal strokes while making the horizon darker to make it a bit realistic. I made the area between the sky and the sea lighter. I painted the sand with a mixture of Naples yellow red and a bit of burnt umber. And with a heavier consistency, I painted the shadows of the beach huts as well as the tree. It looked a bit empty on the other side of the painting, so I'm going to paint some grasses here. I'm painting tall grasses on the center and then shorter ones towards the right end of the frame. I also left a space for the pathway. I painted the tall grasses with my brush quite watery, so from there I knew I don't want to mess it up since I'm not painting on a watercolor paper, so I waited for it to dry and just moved on to the shorter grasses. Then I went back to it and just painted long strokes and adding in a warmer tone at the bottom. I painted shadows underneath the grasses as well as little footprints on the sand, just randomly tapping small strokes, and that finishes this painting. Like I said, I'm going to add a Dutch door spread here, so I'm cutting out this page and then I'll just glue the part where the painting is on the page next to it. I also want to add some colored papers on both sides of the spread. I thought of using these peach and baby blue papers I bought from our local stationery store. I'm sure you can find similar colors near you if you want to do the same thing. I cut out the edge of the Dutch door page a little bit as well, just so the other pair of peach and blue papers will show through on the other side. I thought of gluing the same paper here, but I realized it will be just more work for me, so cutting it is a better idea. Apart from watercolors, I also got a set of Ecoline brush pens from Royal Talons. I just picked out these colors that matches the main colors I'm using in this setup as the background for the titles. I wanted to hand letter using these brush pens, but I thought a monoline font would suit this theme. On the left page here will be my July calendar. I divided each week by drawing double lines with my fine liner. I combined the weekends here, and again, I messed up with the dates. I didn't show the part where I covered them with a white paint pen, but yes, that's always the trick of covering up mistakes on a white paper. The next page will be for some notes, and I just drew a box around it. And then flipping through the Dutch door, these pages will be for my focus and goal spread. This has a similar layout with my previous focus and goal spread because it works for me. I'm writing 3 things I want to prioritize for July and 3 for my monthly goals, as well as actions I need to do to achieve them. Overall, I went for minimal layouts on these pages. And that's everything for this monthly calendar, notes, and my focus, Dutch door, and goals pages. Next, I will be setting up my habit trackers. I'm writing the title without the background this time, and then I'm doing a simple layout for my trackers. I'm tracking 6 habits at the moment. I'm using the same brush pens for the backgrounds of the habit titles instead. I drew inner borders for the habit titles and then the outer borders around each of them. On the next page, I'm setting up my currently list. I haven't used this in a while, so I would love to include it for July. I got this idea from Ashlea of Real Paper Pages on Instagram, and this is basically just writing what I'm currently into this month. So I'm using these papers again. They are about 5 by 12 dot spaces, and I'm gluing them on the middle of the page alternately. I also decided to outline the edges with a pen so it ties together with the habit trackers. Then on each paper here, I'm writing what I'm currently loving, learning, watching, anticipating, and manifesting. You can definitely modify this the way you like, maybe writing what you're currently reading or playing, etc. On the center of the spread will be another illustration. I'm painting a girl on her swimsuit, reading a book while eating some watermelons under the sun. I am painting the girl with her hair tied on a bun. Painting her back was absolutely a struggle for me. I paused a lot of times to figure out where I should paint the shadows because we have bone connected to our arms. So in this position, I wanted to show that here. And I wasn't also sure about the spine, but I think I am at least able to make it look like a back of a human. Then I just painted some watermelons, one on her hand and on a plate on her right side. And then a book, as well as sunglasses, a tote bag, and a sunscreen. I painted a towel here too, and the fact that I chose a color similar to the skin doesn't really create a contrast, so I just worked on the shadows to at least somehow separate these elements. I also painted a shadow of a branch of leaves. There are still a lot of white spaces around the currently list page, so I'm painting some seashells and starfishes as well. I want to add these grid washi tapes for a little more decoration. And lastly, I spontaneously added these sort of sand particles using the Tombow brush pen in Opal. And that finally completes these habit tracker and currently list pages. Moving on to the next spread will be my content planner and playlist pages. Working on my content planner, this is where I plan my posts in my social media handles. I mainly plan for YouTube and Instagram, and then I just randomly post on TikTok when I have time. I'm also tracking my growth on each account, so I'm writing those down here. And make sure to subscribe and follow if you haven't already. The links to my other social media accounts are always listed on the description box. So I just drew the icons for my social media tracker and a little divider to where I will be writing the figures for the start and end of the month, and then the content calendar below. If you're not using a content planner, you can also modify this as your school calendar maybe, or other pages you like to include in your setup. I will have a couple illustrations here as well, but let's do the layout for the playlist page first. I also cut out some squares using the same paper, and I'm gluing them here as if they are album covers. And then I drew the play buttons too. I didn't have a list of songs when I was filming this setup, so it was still blank, but if you want to know what I will be listening to and see my spreads up close, I am posting the pictures on my Instagram, so definitely check that out as well. Under the playlist page, I also added a space for some to-do list for my content, and now let's start painting the illustrations I mentioned earlier. For the content planner page, I am painting this scene where there are stairs going down to the beach. I painted the sky and the water first with the same technique I did from the calendar spread. Then I'm painting the stairs starting with a lighter consistency of the Van Dyke brown color and then just slowly building it up with a darker tone. I'm adding several branches of palm leaves too on the front, grasses on both sides of the stairs, as well as stones on the sand. Honestly, painting a smaller illustration with all the elements were also zoomed out is quite difficult for me, so it was definitely a challenge. But this is not the first time I painted small illustrations, and I like to still be able to add small paintings to my spread to make them visually interesting somehow. On the playlist page will be, of course, another beach scene. It's a girl on her white flowy dress walking under the palm tree.
Breaking me into pieces. I wake up from my dream. I don't know where we went wrong, and you know the answers all along. Now it's up to me to say to you, it's a waste of time, the things we do. Those summer nights, I'm letting you go. It feels too much, so I'm letting you go. I am those summer nights, I'm letting you go. I kissed goodbye before letting you go. Letting you go.
My favorite part is definitely this painting. I love adding personality and feeling to my setups lately by painting people that evokes emotion, and I wish I was able to make this as a bigger painting. Although I said that this is my favorite one, I personally think that this is not finished too, and I hope I added more depth to it. I'm being pretty critical again, but after this painting, we are again moving on to the next one. The page here will be for my gratitude journal, which I usually place next to my habit trackers. As usual, this is where I write down my monthly affirmations, the things I'm grateful for, and the highlights of my month. With all the spreads with paintings I just made, I wanted at least one simple and easy spread to create here. And if you've been following me on Instagram and checking out my stories, you will notice that I like to put these wavy borders a lot, so I thought it would be a nice design element to add on this spread, and that would be indeed a very easy design to do. So I'm just painting these thick wavy lines on the corners of the spread using the 4 prominent colors I'm using in this setup. The other side of the spread will be my favorites of the month page, and this is just a fun page to write down my favorite movie, TV show, memory, food, song, and YouTube video. And this idea is once again inspired by Anna of Journal Away. Finally, we are moving on to the last spreads of this setup, which are my weekly spreads. I'm going for a horizontal Dutch door layout again this month, and I already cut out these pages of camera. I had this ambitious layout and painting idea, and that is to paint a shoreline. My initial idea was to create Dutch doors and cutting out the pages by the transition of the colors of the sand and the water. But just a few days before I film, I saw someone has already done it twice and it was amazing. I wanted to show it here, but I forgot to save that post. So I decided to change it and do something different, so I ended up with this layout instead. I painted the sand first and I tried to achieve the texture of the sand here, but the end result was not what I imagined in my head. I freehanded the daily boxes, so I ended up doing more layers than I should only have, so it turned out uneven. But when I started painting the water and the foam, I still found a hope that this idea would still look good as it come together. So I painted the sand and water with a space in between. Then I used the Royal Talons white gouache as its opacity is perfect to paint the foam. Before that, I added shadows under the white areas on the water using a darker tone as well as on the sand for that wet sand line. Painting the foam was an absolute relaxing process for me. I just painted these messy strokes going down with the white gouache using the tip of the brush. And as you can see, I'm also adding some curves to the base of the wave so it looks more foamy and not too straight. I did the same thing on the upper part of the wave that overlaps the sand. After the painting, it's time to do the weekly layout itself. I'm including a weekly diary for this setup, just a place to scribble how I'm doing each week. There is also a mini calendar under it. Then on the daily boxes is where I drew round blue shapes and wrote all the days. Again, I combined the weekends here. Lastly, I decided to draw thin black borders to the boxes. It's very subtle though, and it didn't actually make a difference. I didn't work on the other weeks when I was filming this. I wanted to somehow improve how I did the background on this layout, but looking at its finished look, it doesn't look bad anyway. So that finally finishes this entire July bullet journal setup. I hope you enjoyed watching this plan with me video. It was quite a long one, but I hope you found some new ideas and layouts to recreate in your own bullet journal. I would love to know what you think about this setup, and if you like it, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more bullet journaling videos. Your support will be very much appreciated as always. That is all for today. Have an amazing month of July, and I will see you on my next video. Bye everyone!